Welcome to the Central Valley Leadership Hour of Truth. Es la hora de la verdad, la mesa redonda. Un saludo y un big thank you to all the men and women of that play in the different. You know what? Can we go back on that? Slide. Okay. Thank you, little technician. A big thank you to all the men and women that serve in our armed forces. Thank you very much for your service, putting your lives on the line. This is our second show live. I do want to say thank you once again, but also to remember all those who lost their lives in this great country. And like it or not, pandemic, no pandemic, recession, the issues that we're going with racism, with Black Lives Matter, with all our industries, all our farmers that donate food during these times of COVID-19, we want to say thank you, and that America will rise above it all, because this is America, a great nation. We have a great speaker today also to introduce, well, several, but I also want to tell you about the cuchara theory. My brother Pedro Gamino constantly reminds me and compares politics to a spoon, and of course this is not the cooking channel, as you can see, but I do want to say that in these times, we need to be frugal. We also need to help and serve those that have less, because sometimes they take advantage. Algunos se aprovechan y son muy políticos y se sirven con la cuchara grande, okay? So I'll start off with that. Let me introduce to you Mr. Jose Moran, who is running for City Council in Livingston. Thank you for being here today.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to you for the invitation. And, you know, this morning as I was teaching, because I'm also a teacher, we were talking about with our kids how to best remember 9/11, and one of the best ways of how we to remember 9/11 is just to not forget it and to make it part of our conversations, not only every year but also, you know, teach our kids what happened, and to make sure most important of all is to talk about it with our kids. And
okay.
Because they're going to be the next generations.
Yes. Let me ask you, if you want to also speak into the mic, I want to ask you, for the people that don't know you, because you've been a businessman for over 20 years, and we know that we're going through hard times, what advice would you give to the folks that are in business today and during this crisis?
Well, I was never, you know, in the 20 years that I was in business, we never had this situation, but definitely I can feel the pain. I can, you know, the only way to be able to be successful, well, one of the main ways to be successful in business is to be able to sell a product. And right now it's very tough, depending on the product that they have, you know, and it's unfortunate. I, like almost all of them, we started small, and then we grew into a big company until actually, you know, I retired from that 3 years ago. But I feel the pain.
Let me ask you, for those that may be wondering what you're all about, what should the voters know about Jose Moran that they don't know? The person, Jose Moran, the husband, the educator, the businessman. What do you want people to know about you?
Well, one of the main things is, you know, for people to know that I'm running for City Council. This is the first time that I'm running for City Council. And personally, I don't, you know, and I think I can still say it. I don't like politics, but what I dislike most is when people are being taken advantage, and that is why I'm jumping into the race to run for City Council, because I'm seeing how the less fortunate are being taken advantage of, and I cannot just stand on the side of the road just watching and not do anything. Although I'm a kind of person that I always try to stay informed. I always try to attend the council meetings and kind of find out, you know, kind of see firsthand what's going on and express my opinion. But still, at the end of the day, the ones that are making the decisions are at that table.
Yes, there's been a while back that you invited myself on a youth education conference for young men and young women so they can learn leadership skills. What motivated you to do this event, and why is it that you're investing in the youth? What's your vision for the youth?
Well, I mean, and for exactly the same reason why I got into education. You know, there came a point in my life to where I was thinking, it's like, you know, I'm trying to change the older folks the ones that are making the decisions, and it's hard to change them. I mean, they're older, they have their own mindset already, and although you try to show and why and the reasons behind it, and I said, this has to change. So what else could I do to be able to make that change? So and I don't know, it was just overnight. I don't know, maybe in one of my dreams, and I woke up the next day and I told my wife, which is also an educator for 18 years, I said, you know what, I'm going to go back to school a second time, and I'm going to go get my teaching credential, because our kids continue to be our future. And if we build and we educate a well-rounded kid, we don't have to worry about them once they're 40 or 30 or 50, and they're the ones that are making the decisions for us.
Yes,
If we do our job now.
Yes, and precisely, we definitely wish you the best in getting elected, and Livingston and the people that support you definitely want to know more about you. There's a big challenge. For whatever reason, there's not always a good voter turnout. Voter education, voter registration is very important. And during this pandemic, we talk about we're going to have a dropout box where there's a touchless, they call it, and there's also going to be the traditional mailer that's going to be coming in people's homes very soon. Here in Fresno County, they're going to start opening the elections office to accept ballots since October 5th, I believe, and people can go turn it in, different drop-off areas. Now, this is new, but what do we need to do to impulse, to push forward the voting, because it's very poor amongst minorities, especially during this pandemic?
Yes, so definitely, when I was planning on what I was going to do for this elections and how I was going to reach out people, other than flyers, other than social media, other than phone calls, it's, my best approach, and I always believe in reaching out people face to face. But with the pandemic, it's kind of difficult, so, and especially with the minorities, they like the face to face, like they want to see you in the eye. They want to see, your facial expressions. They want to see what you think and how you say it. Because it's not so much you being a good professional person, like a professional speaker, but looking at that person in the eye. So, but I think it's just the main part is educating our community of how important it is to make sure that they vote. There's a lot of people that are registered to vote, but the day of, even they might have their ballot right there in front of them already filled out, and then they just don't take the next and last step to actually take it in or drop it off in the mailbox. So more than anything, it's actually making that last effort to just making sure that, your vote does count. Believe me, I've seen races where there's like 20 or 7 votes difference, and you're like, my vote did count.
Yes, no, and you're right. I know that there was a very tight supervisor race, Rodrigo Espinosa, who ran a second term, but we didn't find out if he had won or not. He was trailing for a while, or he was winning just for a few points.
Yes.
Or a few votes in this case. But it took several counting to the last few days. And it is tough, but it also points out that politicians and leaders cannot take these small communities for granted, and we want to push and educate people that that's what happens when it comes down to the wire. Eventually, Rodrigo Espinosa did win, and in fact, he's part of the Central Valley Leadership Roundtable. We congratulate him. I know we couldn't celebrate like we should have, but during this pandemic, it altered everybody's plans.
Yes.
Another close race, T.J. Cox, Congressman, incumbent, his race with Valadeo was very tight. And again, the rural community vote. These communities cannot be drive-by, stop for coffee and just ignored.
Yes.
These communities have a voice. Tenemos voz en esas comunidades rurales. Las elecciones más importantes, como el congresista T.J. Cox, se definió por los votos de las comunidades como Fireball, Mendota, San Joaquín, Huron. Y es muy importante también en el condado de Merced. Rodrigo Espinosa también ganó hasta el último conteo. Así es de que es muy importante que entregue su boleta y queremos promover el voto. No importa por quién voten. Claro que sí queremos que vote por nosotros, pero no, lo más importante es ejercer la democracia y que vote, hacer conciencia.
Así es, y bueno, yo como maestro, y me encanta la historia, podemos ver en nuestra historia cuántas personas realmente han perdido la vida por lograr votar, tan solo por el lograr votar. Y ahora que lo tenemos, a veces como que no lo valoramos tanto por todo el sacrificio. Entonces, es muy sencillo, pero es muy importante. Y créanme, aunque creo que este año va a ser un poquito diferente, yo confío más en la gente. Creo que este año vamos a tener una mejor respuesta, pero no podemos quitar el dedo del renglón. Hasta el último momento vamos a seguir insistiendo. Aun cuando yo todavía veo a alguien, le pregunto, ¿ya se registró? No nomás para el censo, sino también para votar. Y entonces todo eso es muy importante. Así que vamos a seguir hasta el último momento.
Perfecto. Por último, José Morán, me gustó mucho tu volante, tu campaña, pero por último, ¿qué quieres que la gente sepa de ti? Lo que hay en tu corazón, lo que te ha inspirado, que tú quieres que se lleven hoy.
Algo muy importante, si quiere conocer más de quién es José Morán, visite la página de mrjosemoran.com. Ahí, y aparte de eso, yo vengo de familia humilde, de familia del campo. A mí me tocó todavía trabajar en el campo, sé lo que es trabajar en el campo. Y más que nada, pues tengo una gran familia, tengo una gran esposa, unos grandes hijos. Mi esposa es maestra ya por 18 años, entonces hemos trabajado en la comunidad por más de 22 años en organizaciones no lucrativas. Hemos fundado varias organizaciones. Fundamos una conferencia para jóvenes, como lo habías mencionado. Soy presidente de otra organización en el condado de Merced que, igual como muchas otras organizaciones, repartimos comida, cajas de comida en las comunidades más necesitadas. Regalamos mascarillas, hacemos lo que sea necesario para ayudar a esas comunidades más marginadas y con mucha mayor necesidad. Así que no soy nuevo, no soy alguien nuevo que se aparece de un día para otro y ya soñó en ser un representante de alguien, ¿no? Es algo que hemos hecho desde muchos años atrás, nada más que hasta ahora pues me animé a ser alguien, a correr para un puesto y pues hacer lo mejor posible para nuestra comunidad.
And why not? Why not us? Thank you very much for coming all the way from Livingston, California. No se olviden de votar, entregue su boleta. Lo escucharon de José Morán. Muchas gracias. Tenemos otro candidato en la bella ciudad de Mendota. En este momento vamos a traer al nuevo candidato de Mendota, el alcalde pro temp, el alcalde segundo de Mendota, Víctor Martínez, que me tocó conocerlo como estudiante en el colegio comunitario. Él tiene una historia muy interesante. Estamos aquí con el oficial electo, Víctor Martínez. Por favor, dile a la gente quién eres tú, qué son los pensamientos de Víctor.
Sí, claro que sí, Mr. Gamino. Primero que nada, quiero darle las gracias a ustedes por invitarme aquí ahora. De verdad que mentores como ustedes son los líderes que necesitamos más en nuestra comunidad. ¿Quién es Víctor Martínez? Víctor Martínez es un joven que creció en la ciudad de Mendota. He vivido en Mendota por más de 22 años ya. Y también tuve la oportunidad, con muchos challenges, a lot of challenges and a lot of things, que se pusieron enfrente, pero tuve la oportunidad de ir a la universidad y obtener una educación gracias a educadores como ustedes y líderes. Y logré un bachelor's en matemáticas y luego también una maestría en negocios. Víctor Martínez de verdad tiene una visión para Mendota, la visión de que todos podemos llegar al otro nivel. Nadie debe de quedarse sin representación y todos los estudiantes y todas las personas debemos de tener una voz. Ese es Víctor Martínez, estoy aquí para representarlo.
Víctor, se ha escuchado mucho de Mendota en las encuestas, que es la peor comunidad en que vivir en todo el estado. Hace falta fondos y los oficiales electos, del gobernador hasta otros oficiales, saben la necesidad de Mendota, y tú, como representando la comunidad salvadoreña y de los pocos salvadoreños que se han elegido como oficial electo, ¿Qué les quieres decir a esos oficiales electos?
You know, first of all, when I read that news about Mendota being named the worst city I think in the country, right? You know, that was very shocking because I think Mendota is home for most of the people in Mendota are essential employees that we are working, growing the food, that we're working, picking up the food that most of the people in the United States, you know, have in their tables. So me duele que cataloguen a Mendota así, y también me gustaría invitarlos, you know, a que me digan de dónde tomaron esas estadísticas, cuáles son las medidas que están haciendo para dar esas respuestas. La otra cosa, señor Gamino, que también no me parece bien es que hay muchos oficiales electos en diferentes lugares más altos, a nivel del condado, a nivel del Congreso, a nivel del Senado, a nivel estatal, ¿verdad? Que miran esas noticias y ¿qué ocupamos en Mendota? Nomás nos paramos en la ciudad de Mendota cuando es tiempo de votación, y eso está muy mal, you know? Mendota es una ciudad que nosotros tenemos muchas necesidades y estamos llenos de personas trabajadoras que quieren salir adelante, que quieren sobresalir, ¿verdad? Pero también necesitamos el apoyo de esos oficiales electos que nomás llegan a tomarse una fotografía con las personas de la ciudad de Mendota. Eso está totalmente mal y eso no lo aceptamos nosotros, ¿verdad?
So there you have it. You hear from Mayor Pro Tem, Mr. Victor Martinez, elected official of Mendota, California, Fresno County, that elected officials should not just come by and take a photo in Mendota, but if they see the needs, they need to change it. Those grants should be raining in Mendota, and we don't see that happening.
Yes, and why is it, you know, that Mendota being in the category of the worst community, the worst city, why is it that we always get bypassed when we apply for these grants? You know, it makes no sense. I feel that higher level politicians, along with, you know, all the leaders, we should be working in making these communities rise up, because these communities are full of hardworking people, you know, full of essential people, essential employees that put the food into the table.
Something about Victor that I know personally as a former instructor and mentor for Victor. Many people don't know this, and I know you don't like to talk about it, Victor, but I know it's very inspirational. You had leukemia. You were diagnosed with cancer, the blood, and you used to go get your chemo at Valley Children's Hospital. They used to apply the medication, and with every bone in your body hurting, you still showed up to class, and that just tore my heart as an educator. But I also appreciated the passion and the dedication not to give up, because most people would have thrown the towel in.
Yeah.
People need to know that you're a fighter, and now that you have been successful, you want to give back to your community, to everybody that lives in Mendota, the residents, that because they deserve a better reputation.
Yes, absolutely, Mr. Gamino. I strongly believe, you know, that every student and every person in the city of Mendota, you know, deserves a better quality of life, you know, and that's what we're here for, fighting for them. I strongly believe that there's nothing that can stop a student, you know, and I know that a lot of the students might be looking at this video, watching it later on. There's absolutely nothing that can stop them, you know. Growing in Mendota, I was raised with many challenges, you know, a lot of disadvantages that we didn't have, you know. Being a English learning student, and I still struggle sometimes, but I'm proud of the fact that, you know, that we keep moving forward. That's not an obstacle. It's something that we take, that we want to move forward.
Yes, and I know your strong point, and you were a math major, and let me tell you, they're in high demand, and I'm sure this is why you've been very successful, math. And I remember when you competed as a student for the math club, and you lost a competition because at that time you needed glasses, and you could not visualize that pi symbol on a mathematician problem, and so I personally came and said, Victor, you cannot lose a competition for glasses. Let's go get a pair of glasses. But you are a humble person. Now you're successful, but you're sharing your story. Está compartiendo la historia de que una persona como Víctor estaba diagnosticado con cáncer, pero muchos hubieran tirado la toalla. Víctor no es ese tipo, por eso estamos aquí apoyándolo. Me da gusto que está representando en lo más alto la comunidad salvadoreña, pero más que nada la comunidad de todos los que viven en Mendota, y Mendota no merece ese catálogo de ser la peor comunidad en todo el estado. Por último, Víctor, ¿qué le quieres decir a tu audiencia, a los que te siguen o los que no sepan muy bien quién eres?
Sí, yo quiero decirle que sigamos luchando y no se den por vencidos nunca de sus metas, sus ideas, lo que quieren cumplir, nunca se den por vencidos, sigamos luchando. Las próximas elecciones, yo sé y respeto mucho a las personas que están corriendo, pero a la misma vez también les digo, vamos a elegir, y no hay que elegir a la persona que esté más calificada para representarnos y tener excelente representación a nivel local, como es la carrera que estamos nosotros ahorita corriendo.
Perfecto. Entonces, mira, muchas gracias por estar aquí. Vamos a continuar con nuestro siguiente oficial electo. Víctor, muchas gracias. Necesitamos más personas como tú. De verdaderamente un orgullo hispano. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, Mr. Camino.
El siguiente invitado, our next invitee, we have Mr. S.P. Sandoval from the city of Kerman, city council member. As we can see there in the picture, he's out there giving out literature in the different food distributions with Congressman T.J. Cox. Thank you to our congressman. And, of course, Mr. Sandoval, you're making things happen in Kerman. Tell us about who you are so that our audience can know a little bit more about you.
Well, first of all, lo que les quiero decir, vamos a hablar español. Lo que les quiero decir es de que yo soy el candidato para alcalde de Kerman y he sido educador por 30 años y me gusta mucho ayudar a la gente. Para mí, la política es algo que tenemos que participar nosotros como latinos, como hispanos, porque en la historia de Kerman, yo soy el segundo latino que se eligió para el concilio de Kerman. Y para mí es algo muy triste. Necesitamos más personas motivadas que se envuelvan en cuestiones comunitarias de su comunidad.
Perfecto. Déjame decirte, Mr. Sandoval, estábamos hablando de mi hermano mayor que siempre me cotorrea si hay una teoría del cucharón. Siempre dicen que hay unos que se sirven con la cuchara grande y cuando es para otros con la cuchara pequeña. What do you have to say those that serve others with small spoon, oppose those that are in position of power or in a position of authority and serve themselves with the bigger spoon?
Well, tenemos muchos oficiales electos que deben servir a sus comunidades, pero se sirven con la cuchara grande ellos mismos porque, pues así es como trabaja la política. Mira, tenemos gente que se elige para servir y tenemos gente que se elige para servirse a ellos mismos. Y lo que yo quiero decirle a la gente es que yo me elegí para servir a mi comunidad de Kerman y para servir a las comunidades del Valle Central y para seguir sirviendo a todas nuestras comunidades de este gran país.
I know that a big project that you have been very instrumental is promoting the standalone community college program, standalone enrollment program, and a lot of kids, impressive stories that I've seen in different English channels as well as Spanish. Education, what does it mean to our community members and to the children of campesinos? What does it mean to them?
El secreto del progreso es la educación. Y lo que necesitamos entender es que si estamos educados, vamos a tener con qué defendernos. Entonces, cada estudiante que se educa va a poder abrirle camino a su familia. Por ejemplo, te voy a dar, yo fui el primero en mi familia en graduarme de una escuela preparatoria. Fui el primero en graduarme del colegio. Después todos nos siguen. Me siguen a mí. Entonces, tenemos que ser ese gran ejemplo. Yo tengo arriba de 30 años como educador y es lo que miro. Un miembro de una familia comienza, los demás siguen. Y como dijo el candidato Morán hace rato, la educación es lo que va a cambiar nuestras comunidades. Y lo que necesitamos es educar. Y sí, tengo un programa que se llama Higher Education for All. Y lo que estamos haciendo es abriéndole camino a los estudiantes, educándolos con doble matriculación, lo que quiere decir que están tomando clases universitarias cuando están en la escuela preparatoria.
And having college education, we know, is a pathway to achieve the American dream. Having an education is a game changer. Education is what's going to pave the journey for these young men and women, especially during recessions, during the pandemic. You know, kids need opportunities to excel. They need jobs, especially in the West Side communities. But what are some of the challenges if you become mayor of Kerman? What is your vision for Kerman?
La visión para Kerman es muy fácil. Tenemos que tener una gran visión. La visión es realmente de tener empresarios, gente que se enseñen, jóvenes que se enseñen a comenzar o empezar sus propios negocios. Necesitamos a jóvenes que van a agarrar sus títulos de colegio. Entonces necesitamos mucha educación. Y yo creo lo que va a hacer que Kerman progrese es educando a la comunidad en una forma extensa.
Okay, and now I know there's a lot of discussion with crime and so forth. I know that San Joaquin, before we lost your compadre, Mr. Jose Manuel Ornelas, descanse en paz, Jose, he was a strong advocate not only for water, but for also community ordinance where it's going to maintain the peace. There were several shots fired and folks getting killed in San Joaquin. But I understand, and I know as a public official, we become aware of information. There was a drive-by close to your home. What does it mean having a police force that understands the issues in Kerman?
Bueno, algo bien importante que tenemos que entender, nuestras comunidades pequeñas necesitamos seguridad. Necesitamos realmente un grupo de policías que nos van a servir. Y no policías que nos van a faltar el respeto. Necesitamos policías que se conecten con las comunidades. Y en Kerman tenemos esto. Tenemos un gran sistema de comunicación entre todos nosotros.
Yes, and you mentioned something very important about respect. I know that we had a case that I won't mention the community down in the west side where we had a gentleman from Chiapas who the parents communicated to me that he had fallen off a ladder picking our fruits, our vegetables and so forth, feeding America. He got cited for a simple infraction, and the police officer told him, sit down. He couldn't sit down because he had hurt his back. And the misunderstanding, he got charged with resisting arrest. And let me tell you that the communication, the sensitivity that our law enforcement have to have, and also the respect has to be earned. And so you touch a very important topic, and I want to give you one more opportunity to express to the voters, what do you want your voters to know about Mr. Sandoval? ¿Quién es?
Bueno, yo quiero que sepan que soy una persona honesta, con integridad, y que estamos listos para elegirnos y correr una gran ciudad de Kerman.
Perfecto. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Sandoval. Best of luck to you. We have another special guest. If you don't mind, let's help me bring the artwork of Mr. Jose Elias. So Mr. Jose Elias is going to come in to demonstrate. He's a local artist, as you can see. This young man, now a community leader, came to this country. He became a citizen of this country by working hard. He started in the fields. He went to the university. He completed his education in art, his master's, and his artwork is being shown throughout the San Joaquin Valley. He's transforming the valley with his artwork. The latest mural on Huron, California, thanks to Mr. Ray Leon, mayor of Huron, who made this happen, as well as many others who support the arts in Huron. And in fact, it was to promote the census. No se olviden, el censo es lo más importante para traer fondos a nuestras comunidades que están muy necesitadas. Hágase contar. No tenga miedo de llenar el formulario, porque si no lo hacemos, vamos a continuar sufriendo. Mr. José Elías, date a conocer aquí para nuestra audiencia, el artista de muchos murales y pintura. Dinos quién eres tú para los que no te conocen.
Mi nombre es José Elías. Vengo de México, del estado de Guanajuato. Llegué aquí a la edad de 18 años y comenzando trabajando en los campos, en el área oeste, y desde entonces me dio una gran pasión o una motivación de continuar mis estudios, no porque el trabajo del campo sea un trabajo no digno, al contrario, se agradece mucho el trabajo de los campesinos, pero aparte de esto, me motivó también para seguir con mis estudios, ir a la escuela y tomar lo que más adoré hacer, que fue crear arte.
Sí, no, y estamos mirando la pantalla. Quiero que miren si pasaron el niño que está llegando con una caja de chicles. Si podemos poner, we can put that one on the screen. The boy with the box of gum. What inspired you to do this particular piece of artwork? Because it's very powerful. Definitely, we can relate to it. That particular painting is all charcoal. This is a new style. What inspired you to do this piece of artwork?
Yeah, this is a new technique that actually I start back in almost, I'm gonna say probably like 10 years ago, using charcoals on canvas. Before I used to use mostly oil paints on canvas, everything in color. And then I went back to only black and white. But it was actually, to me, like a challenge to do something like this, to experiment with a different media on canvas. So this one, the one of this child, as you see, selling gum or chicles.
Yes.
This is something that I used to see back in Mexico. Como los niños a esa edad comienzan a trabajar.
Pues el trabajo le roba su juventud. Esa imagen es muy fuerte y me conmovió because a child loses their innocence. They have to learn and contribute to the household. It reminds me of what's happening right now during the pandemic when families are having trouble paying the rent. The CARES monies may not be reaching those families. Now, last program we talked about all the funds that come, they don't trickle down to Mendota. They don't trickle down to Fireball or to Huron or to San Joaquin and the west side. And we want those funds to reach these families that are very needy. So that picture brings out those issues that we want to make sure that we serve not only these families with a small spoon, but when there's resources, let's not use the big spoon for those well-connected, and we know what organizations those are. People are watching. Ellos ven a quién les sirven con la cuchara pequeña en esa teoría. So, ese pedazo de trabajo artístico conmueve y hace la gente que haga conciencia de que hay gente que está muy necesitada, que niños están sufriendo al igual que familias. Pero, ¿qué es lo que te conmovió para hacer la creación como artista?
Lo que me motivó es porque yo mismo lo viví en vida. Mirar niños pidiendo o trabajando a esa edad en las calles. Mirarlos cómo tienen que salir cada mañana, al igual que el campesino. El campesino igual sale las mañanas a buscar la comida. Entonces este niño hace lo mismo. Va a salir primero, su primera obligación es salir a buscar de comer para el día y después viene la diversión. Al campesino es lo mismo, sale primero a traer el pan a sus mesas del día y después viene el convivir con su familia.
You're talking about the hierarchy of needs, Maslow's, if I'm not mistaken. And this is, you know what, you touched a very important point. Why aren't people voting? Well, people need to have food on the table. They need to make sure that we serve them their basic needs so that way they can take time to go vote and make sure that they can change the direction of this great nation. And again, vote. It doesn't matter if you vote for either party or independent, it doesn't matter, but you need to vote because your vote is your voice. That's the biggest challenge. We need to make sure that when we get the mailer, that we fill it out, and we have to also educate. And I'm going to dedicate more time to talk about the different propositions. We want to make sure that there's one in particular that young men and women at the age of 17 that will turn 18 before election time that have a voice, that they can vote based on the fact that they're going to turn 18 prior to November 3rd or prior to the election in this case, so that way they have a say so who they want as president. That's the big one. Another proposition is to help our schools. Education is the future. No podemos quitarle los fondos a las escuelas porque esos jóvenes son nuestro futuro. Así es de que tenemos que pasar por esta pandemia. Una vez más, estás transformando nuestras vidas con tu arte, señor y artista José Jesús Elías. Estamos agradecidos con todo tu trabajo y te vamos a llamar seguido. también vende su trabajo, hace un trabajo excelente. ¿Quieres darle el teléfono a los que gusten contactarte, Mr. Elías?
Sí, en caso de que alguien esté interesado en alguna obra de arte o en hacer algún proyecto, en dar algunas clases a estudiantes, me pueden contactar. Mi número de teléfono es área 559-871-5680, o me pueden mandar también un email es a jjelias69@yahoo.com.
Thank you very much, Mr. Elias. Now you brought up another piece of art, and I don't know if we can move the cameras to make sure that we have. There it is. We have this. I want to say a mom, and again, this is not my creation. A mom. She's probably praying. Tell us what is she doing and what inspired you.
Esta es una fotografía que tomé hace como yo pienso unos 15 años en México, y fue de una persona que encontré en el mercado y le tomé esta fotografía. Pues muchas de mis obras están hechas por medio de photographies that I took myself. Y miré a la señora en el mercado y me inspiró su expresión.
Very inspiring, and in fact, I know a lot of folks that have seen your art in different galleries. They say that reminds me of my grandmother. That reminds me of mom, and a lot of times, especially when they have their sons and young daughters crossing to the U.S. and the separation of families, it really strikes the sentiment to the core, to the bone, that we are human beings. Separating families is not part of the American way of doing things in this great country. Keeping families unified is in the most hearts of all Americans, and we want to do everything that we can to work through immigration. We ask our congressmen, we ask our senators to really humanize themselves, to know that families need to be kept together. Because when there's not an adult in those homes, it contributes to crime. And you ask law enforcement, you ask educators, that when families are separated, there's a strong indication that those kids that are at risk. So again, Mr. Elias, any last message for the audience? ¿Qué quieres decirle por último a la audiencia?
Pues primeramente, pues ahorita en este tiempo de pandemia, pues que nos cuidemos, ¿verdad? Hay que protegernos. Otra es que igual que nos registremos para votar y ayudar a nuestra comunidad.
Perfecto. Quiero decirles que siempre un anuncio aquí rápidamente, porque sé que todos los negocios están sufriendo. Quiero darle un saludo a Don Pepe's de Fireball, a Manuel Tires de Fireball también, y de Mendota, a Alex Auto Repair. Muchas gracias por el apoyo. Sé que ayudas a muchas familias. Sus trabajos son esenciales para que puedan seguir trabajando, que siga la economía funcionando. A los trabajadores agrícolas and our farm workers, you are the motor of the American economy. You are feeding America, and I'm glad that the world is seeing how essential you are, risking your lives, just like our military men and women who and especially this September 11th, have put their lives at risk. You're putting your lives at risk out there in the field, especially with all these fires throughout California. Con estas lumbradas e incendios, están también poniendo sus vidas en riesgo para que sigan alimentando esta nación grande, fuerte, por los trabajadores agrícolas. Tenemos que reconocer eso. Una vez más, orgulloso de ser hijo de un ex bracero, mi padre Pedro Gamiño. Simplemente falleció hace unos años, pero lo llevamos a nuestros padres aquí en el corazón. Gracias a todo. Mi hermano mayor Pedro, aquí está tu teoría de la cuchara. Unos le sirven con la cuchara pequeña, a otros se sirven con la cuchara grande. Y no crean que no lo están mirando. No hay que ser nomás para allá, sino también hay que repartir, no nomás para uno, y no ser egoístas. Así es de que la teoría de la cuchara, esté o no esté en los libros, si es teoría o no, siempre es un pensamiento, no deja de ser de algo que tiene mucha verdad en estos tiempos. Algo más, Mr. Elías, que has escuchado tú de la teoría de la cuchara.
Sí, la cuchara o el asadón, ¿verdad?
Ay. Pues quiero que sepas, mira, seguimos teniendo. Let me point out a particular statistic that 83% of Americans in the Pew Research Center pointed out that 83% of Americans are saying that this election, presidential election, is so important. Okay, but besides being important, we need to make sure that you vote. Remember, it doesn't matter. Well, it does matter who you vote for, but I'm going to refrain from promoting anyone. Do the right thing. Pick those leaders, especially those leaders that call you, that know your community, that are going to help, and that are not going to serve themselves with a big spoon. That if they are going to serve others with a big spoon, is accepted. But again, we know who those are, and so we encourage people to vote, okay? You heard it here, the Central Valley Leadership Roundtable, Hour of Truth. Vamos a hablar con la verdad aquí en el Valle Central, así es de que queremos que corra la voz, y si hay un tema que ustedes quieren que toque aquí, pues también haga favor de comunicarse aquí con la mesa redonda. Soy oficial electo, así es de que mi información es pública. Queremos promover la educación. Gracias a todos los que vinieron. Aquí tenemos un gran show también para la próxima semana y vamos a continuar. You hear it here in the Central Valley Leadership Roundtable. How are we doing on time there, technician? We're doing good on time. Así es de que otra proposición aquí en el Valle, en el condado de Fresno, es de que muchos no están votando, digamos, por promedio in a good election year. 45%, 45%, but again, I don't know what it is, and it's very important to continue to vote. This time, again, it's going to be on different locations where you drop your vote off, beginning October 5th, but check with our county to make sure those locations of those drop-off boxes, so you don't have to make a drive to Fresno. It could be in San Joaquin or whatever community is near you that you can drop it off, but please do vote. We'll have about 4 weeks to cast those votes. The earlier, the better, to make sure your vote counts. You heard it here in the Central Valley Leadership Roundtable, Hour of Truth. How are we doing on time there? We still got time. Okay, Elías, ¿qué son tus siguientes proyectos, tus planes en empezar un mural?
Bueno, por los murales ahorita parece que siguen otros planes aquí localmente.
Uh-huh.
Y primeramente se vuelvan a abrir las galerías. Esperemos otra vez hacer otras exhibiciones para que la gente pueda mirar trabajo nuevo, y estos son principalmente volver a podernos juntar como comunidad y poder visitar las galerías para poderlas.
And you're right. Cultural galleries if we start opening in a safe way, in a safe manner, because not only are we concerned about the mental health of our children, but we're also concerned about the mental health of adults. Couples. During this pandemic, we're all, doing our part, but there's more domestic violence. We need to make sure that we stay vigilant to make sure children are safe, that even adults, for those elected officials, we need to make sure that we blocked off definitely the picnic tables at the parks, but the people in the society need places where they can exercise safely, take a nice walk, release some of the frustration, stress, and that's very important, because we're not talking about the long-term effects for our well-being, and it's important to realize that just staying home is not a solution. Oh, we're just going to shut down. Well, yes, you shut down, but there's still going to be issues at home. Kids in school, they're out of their routine. They don't have a certain routine like when they used to start at school at 8 and so forth. And teachers know, what I'm talking about, that they get easily distracted. They're at home. They want a snack. They want to eat in front of their screen and so forth. So again, we need to proceed with caution. We need to be very vigilant. But we also need to look in solutions with safety cohorts. Okay, I did read on the paper that most of the private schools are being allowed with the waiver to begin initiating live instruction with safety measures. Well, we have a lot of fine schools that are public schools that should also have a green light to begin safely depending, of course, what is the content, the people that have been infected or been tested positively. And so it's going to vary. One size does not fit all. But there is a big social emotional price we're paying for just saying stay home. You know, working parents, essential workers, they don't know who to leave their kids. Some kids are by themselves, and I know for a fact. And as a parent, you know, your heart just clenches to know that that's what's happening, and it's not safe. There are some negative effects from just shutting down, and I'm not advocating a speedy opening up of a business and so forth, but those that are essential, again, and I said it on the last show, open up your restrooms. It's a human right to have access to water and soap, and also for human functions. The restrooms, if you're making money and the agricultural workers come in vans, give them the dignity to use your restrooms. And you know who I'm talking about. But across the board, families tell me I can't take the kids to a certain park and so forth because, again, the restrooms. Kids don't control their bladder. They go to the store to pick up something. Hey, they're wearing their masks. They're following rules, even their children. But the restrooms are closed. And so something's wrong there. That's just my 2 cents. So, Elias, also, 2 propositions that I want you to know about. Prop 21, rent control. Sabemos que la renta, la proposición 21 habla de la renta que esté controlada, que no nomás suba, sino también que se ponga en una área estable. Porque recuerden, a veces en unos lugares la renta es más que un pago de casa. Y saben que ya se están volando la barda unos, no todos. We're not going to generalize, but in some places it's outrageous. People still need to feed their children, their families, and I know that we can do better in that area. Another big proposition, Proposition 22, that those that work for Uber and Lyft have a right to benefits. I know that's a big one. I know that we support that proposition because we know that those people earning, working, getting people to their destination is essential work. And a lot of times we want to say that they don't need benefits, but they have kids, they have children that need to go to the dentist, they need to see the doctor, and if you're lucky to have savings, you're able to provide those services. So let's start and treat people with dignity, give them a dignity pathway to support their family, their children. Okay, and that's the message. Mr. Elias, I'll take it back to you. I believe that you're working on a project in the city of San Joaquin. At least you're working on a sketch to honor our leader that we lost to COVID-19, Jose Manuel Ornelas. You want to tell us about it?
Yeah, that's one of my next projects, which is going to be again in San Joaquin. It's going to be maybe a mural above maybe between 15 by maybe 10 or maybe 10 by 20, I'm going to say. Yeah, I'm still working on the sketch, and hopefully the San Joaquin can see the mural pretty soon.
Yes, and we can remember our fallen elected official, Jose Manuel Ornelas. There we have it on the screen. Lo extrañamos mucho, que descanse en paz. Pero él perteneció a la organización WELL. WELL se especializa en abogar por el agua, que todos tengan acceso al agua potable, que esté sana. Porque sabemos que hay muchos contaminantes y queremos que seguir esa lucha de José por la organización WELL. I want to give a shout out to organization WELL. We know that Jose Manuel Ornelas did pivotal work. His heart was in providing clean drinking water for all families of San Joaquin. But San Joaquin is not the only community that needs drinking water. Lanier and all these other outlying communities, we need to make sure that we protect our water. Yes, we're pro-business, but everything has to come in a balance. And so we want to make sure that we're reasonable. We're using this platform not to to really push or promote a certain stance, but when it's the well-being of our children, of our families, and what's so basic, the privilege to have access to drinking water. It's going to be a challenge now, it's a challenge now, and for the future, if we don't take care of our fresh drinking waters. Especially our wells. So great job, well. I hope to do more projects and soon have someone from your representation to come and speak here in the Central Valley Leadership Roundtable, Hour of Truth. We want to talk about the issues that normally don't get talked about because they don't have the platform to do so. We've been very fortunate. We definitely want to thank Mr. Richard Martinez, CEO, founder, president of this unique platform. We definitely are very happy to be here and to promote what's going to help our communities go to the next level to improve the way of life. How are we doing, technician? How are we doing on time? Okay, and there we have it. You heard it here. Lo escucharon aquí en la hora de la verdad de la mesa redonda aquí del Valle Central. Eliseo Gamiño, su servidor público y oficial electo del Ayuntamiento Escolar. Estamos haciendo nuestro trabajo, así es de que si no hemos tocado su tema, háganoslo saber y aquí lo escuchará. Maestro Elías, muchas gracias por todo.
Gracias.